Oh, did you?
Yeah, I can see. I don't know if I've seen the time for you.
It's not bad running running.
Look, no, just
Spectator
it's awesome, babe.
I don't think I quite did it.
Huh?
All right, so here's the deal for tonight. I'm going to go out and I'm going to see whether 4 minutes per kilometer is even remotely possible. I'm going to do a 2 kilometer warm up, then 3 times 1K at sub 4 minute pace. Now, I'm not making excuses, but you know, one of the biggest mistakes that I made over the weekend was
What?
I ran a long run on Saturday.
And Garmin is saying that I'm in 20-minute and 22-second shape. And I'm trying to run sub 20 minutes to kick off the speed this summer. And that's a little bit scary because for me, whether it's kilometer repeats, mile repeats, that seems harder and holding on at a much slower pace for a marathon.
And I did a leg work on Sunday. Now, normally that wouldn't be a problem, but 1 week before you're going to run an all-out 5K, not smart. Still feeling that
Then
malaise
why
today.
are you running?
Running tonight?
Yeah.
Because I need to know whether I can run those paces.
Yes, I'm pausing my watch. Yes, that was hard. 3 by 1K, slightly faster than I need to go for the race. That's 3 days away. 2 kilometer cool down. Then the next couple of days, it's got to be
Mentally, I've got to freshen up, get that leg turnover, keep things going. Okay, fair enough.
Yeah?
Okay.
Oh, it bothers me how we're not centered.
Does that bother you?
Yeah.
Enough chat. Let's get out on the run.
double and an extra large black.
You need a double, extra large black?
Yeah.
Anything else?
That's it. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay, so here we go. Race day weekend. Hi, everybody, and welcome to the race vlog. Today, we are running our first race of 2025. It is a 5K locally on Mother's Day weekend. Now, normally on this weekend, at least for the last 3 years, I've run the marathon, and I've never actually run an all-out 5K. So this is going to be really, really interesting for me. My goal today, it's to beat Garmin. Garmin has me running a 20-minute and 29-second 5K race. I'm hoping to go a little bit closer to 20 minutes. There's a couple of things I'm not quite sure about that we're going to find out within about 2 hours, is whether I can hold that 4 minute per kilometer pace for an entire 5K, whether I can mentally stay in that pace for an entire 5 kilometer race, and just whether the little bit of preparation I put in puts me even close to that goal. That's kind of what excites me about today. I really have no idea. I jumped into running a few years ago. I've trained and run a few marathons. I've never really considered the shorter distances. And my thinking lately, if you watch some of my recent videos, is that I want to spend at least a couple months here before we dive into marathon training for the fall. at getting a little bit faster at the shorter distances, because I think that's going to move the needle in all distances. At least that's the theory. I think today is going to be painful. I think today, at the end of the day, my number one goal is that I don't want my mind to be the thing that slows me down in the end. I want my body to be able to prove it to myself that I can do it. And I think I can. Sub 20 would be the dream goal. Sub 20, 29 to beat that Garmin predictor would be awesome. As long as I get out there and feel after I cross that finish line, I've given an all-out effort. I really honestly don't care, because at the very least, this is going to be a good, solid training stimulus for the ultimate goal, which is honestly to get faster for the marathon in the fall. But we're going to go out there. We're going to endure some pain. I'm going to take you along for the ride. It's going to be a really good video if I'm able to break sub 20. It's also going to be a really good video if I'm able to beat Garmin. It's also going to be a really good video if I go out and crash and burn. It's a little bit windy, a little bit wet, a little bit cool. Already had some coffee, already had my bagel, peanut butter, jam, and we're getting ready to go. Excited for this one. Excited for race day. First race of 2025. I'll see you guys out there. 2004. 2004. Hi guys, welcome back to the office. I'm not going to swear that we didn't meet our sub 20 goal. And there is a very specific reason for that. And it has been a week and a half since I ran that race, but I got to tell you just a brief, unrelated to running story before we get into how the race went. A couple of the big takeaways that I have, and it's that if you haven't watched one of my last videos, there's at the beginning of that video, I'm telling the story about think unicorns, not horses. You know, I used to tell this grade 1 class that I taught that if you hear hoof prints, think horses, not unicorn. You'll have to watch the video if you want the whole gist of what I'm talking about here, but I swore at the beginning of that video. I bleeped it out, but I did swear. And the other day, if you haven't been watching my channel, you might not know that I'm a school teacher. I bring it up every once in a while. But the other day, I walked into a classroom and one of the students was holding up a sign that said, "Mr. Sprague, you swore." And I had no idea what they were talking about. And they were watching that video. They watched that video. I've been found out on YouTube, trying to not actively keep it a secret from them, but I've been found out on YouTube. Usually I keep it pretty clean. I wanted to add that for a little bit of a dramatic effect at the beginning of the video, and it worked, because it caught their attention. All right. Today's video is going to be about that little bit of a spoiler that I did get 2004 when my goal was sub 20. Strava had me at 1952 when I crossed 5K, but we ran over distance. We're going to go over that. We're going to go over kilometer to kilometer. We're going to go over some of the things that I learned. And also, this is something that I picked up a long time ago. A little bit of a tip for some of you there is that on the back of these bibs, it's just kind of a nice keepsake to write the race, the date, and the official time that you got during that race. I picked that up from Seth James D'Amour many years ago. Still watch him today. So glad to see him back on YouTube. All right. He never went away, but so glad to see him regularly updated on YouTube. Let's talk about this race, and we're going to start with the shoes. The shoes I wore for the 5K, the local 5K that I ran a week and a half ago, where I got my PB by a long shot, is the Saucony Endorphin Pro 3. Now this shoe has my marathon PB, my 10K PB at the Saucony London 10K last year, and now my 5K PB. And I have no doubt if I ran a half marathon in this shoe, it would have that PB as well. But I am in the market for a new super shoe. So if you want to put something in the comment section down below of what shoe I should be going for, what shoe should replace this one that cost me $60. $60. I bought this new year and a half ago, and it's been a beast, but it's going to get into just becoming a workout shoe for me. But today, that was the shoe that I wore during the race. Also, the medal, just have to say briefly, medal, it's okay. Fredericton, I think you've done better. I think you've done better in previous years, but mixed feelings about this medal in my household, but I'm gonna hold on to it proudly. So we're gonna go over 3 big lessons that I learned over this race weekend doing this 5K, which was, by the way, my first 5K. I'm more, if you've been watching my channel again, you know that I'm more into running marathons. And I've decided over the last month and a half that it made more sense that if I wanted to reach that ultimate goal of getting that Boston qualifier, getting even close to sub-3, I was going to have to get faster at some of the shorter paces. If you are a long-time subscriber, from the bottom of my midsole, thank you. I appreciate you sharing my videos, commenting in the videos down below, all of that. You have no idea how much that means to me. But if you are new, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, and comment in the comment section down below. What is your super shoe of choice? I need a new shoe. I've got lots of races coming up, 5K in a few weeks here, 10K about a month and a half away, half marathon in September, full marathon in October, and probably a few more along the way. I am pumped about the result. All right, so 3 big takeaways that I have from this race. The first one is that I've learned that I can run other distances than a marathon. I was so intimidated to go and actually run this 5K. I thought I was not meant to run a 5K. I ended up, out of 550 people at the local race, finishing 11th overall. I am blown away by that result, blown away. I ended up first out of 30 males in the 40 to 49 category, blown away by those results. I know those aren't amazing. I know getting somewhere around 20 minutes, going for sub-20, getting really close to it isn't amazing for some, but it's a big deal for me, and it was a really important stepping stone, and we'll talk about that here. But that is number one, just the idea that I can run a really good short distance, at least relative to me. Number two, respect that 5K distance. There were so many people leading up to this race. They came and asked me if I was running the marathon because I had been running it for the last 3 years. And when I told them no, I was running the 5K, they kind of looked at me strange, almost like I had given up on my running. And in a way, I thought that a little bit too. It was in the back of my mind. Should I be going for the marathon? Should I be hitting that milestone? Everybody puts the marathon up on a pedestal. 5Ks are hard. 5Ks are hard. Preparing for them properly, respecting the 5K, very important. I've got a lot of respect myself for those out there who train and run fast 5Ks. It's an amazing thing. And third is going to be know your why. And I'll talk a little bit more about that at the end of the video. I had my race. My son had his race later on in the day. I got the chance to share that with him, and I'll bring up how that all played out towards the end of this video. But know your why. And my why is, I've talked about it before, is definitely my family. All right, so all that out of the way, let's dive into the race itself. Now, you probably saw in some of the clips, it was kind of a cold, damp, wet, windy morning. It was around 4 or 5 degrees Celsius. I'll put the Fahrenheit up here somewhere on the screen. And the wind was gusting, but it wasn't enough that it was really bothering me. And there were a couple of kilometers where I was able to tuck in behind a much taller person. Thank you so much. If you get the chance to watch this video, I have no idea why you would, but if you do, thank you. It was very helpful. So I didn't really have any complaints about the cold. To be honest with you, it would have been a whole lot harder for me if it had been hot. I don't do well in the heat, so weather-wise, it was not an issue. I also, for the first time in a very long time, maybe ever, actually did a little bit of a warm-up. I'm not somebody who warms up for races. I get there in plenty of time, I stand around, I chat with different folks, and I sort of totally neglect the warm-up. This time, I was able to run, even though it was short, run about 1.5, 2 kilometers easy. And then I had about 2 45-second pickups where I got into race pace. And I'm going to tell you, at that time, at that moment, it felt really hard to be running that fast. So it did scare me a little bit, but I knew it was necessary, especially at the shorter distances, especially where we were going to be kind of redlining it pretty early on in this race. So I committed to doing a little bit of a warm-up. Wasn't ideal. Probably should have done a couple more strides. Probably should have ran another kilometer or 2, but we got something in and I felt better for it before the gun went off. All right, so as the gun goes off and we're into kilometer 1, it is very apparent as I'm looking around on the start line, as we're going through that first kilometer, that there are so many people around me who are running so many different paces. And I really had no idea what other people were running. So I just decided in that first kilometer, where I was new to the 5K distance, that I was just gonna set my own pace. I was not gonna worry about anybody else at that point. And I just wanted that first kilometer to tick over over at almost exactly 4 minutes per kilometer. So I was watching my watch pretty close in that first kilometer. And when we got to that 1K marker, when my watch did auto lap to say that I was at 1 kilometer, it ticked over at exactly 4 minutes. So I felt really good about that. That was a really good start. The one thing I will say is that immediately it felt pretty hard, and my marathon brain was telling me it was way too hard, way too early. You kind of train yourself into thinking that you have to dial it back and ease into the race. But I told myself at that point that this was a 5K. It was meant to hurt. It was going to hurt early. And if I wanted to get the most out of myself, I was going to just have to accept that we were going to get into those threshold paces and beyond threshold very, very early in the race. So kilometer 1 went really, really well. According to plan, I was able to hit that 4 minute per kilometer pace. So kilometer 2, I did actually find somebody to run with. There was a dad who was pacing a couple of kids, and it felt like they were running right around that 4 minute per kilometer pace. I thought maybe they were going for a sub 20. I did ask, and I wasn't quite sure what he said. I was pretty focused on what I was doing, but I decided to tuck him behind him. And I noticed once I tucked him behind him, I was able to sort of relax a little bit. And I accepted that even if we went over pace a little bit, it felt comfortable. I knew I hadn't backed off very much, but it felt comfortable to actually have somebody to run with at that point, because up until that point, the first kilometer, I was kind of in no man's land. Even though there were so many people around me, I was really running on my own. So we went through that second kilometer in 4:06. So I was aware of that. I looked down at my watch. I saw that we had dropped a couple seconds on that 4 minute per kilometer pace. And in kilometer 3, very similar. Now this was a double loop course, and when we were in kilometer 3, we were on that second loop. And as we were going around that second loop, we were passing, weaving in and out of different people, and Dad was really, really getting quite upset. Everybody was on the inside lane, and they weren't giving us sort of the shortest distance around the course, and that's going to come into play as we get further on into the race. But he was really, really upset. He was yelling, he was clapping. He knew that if his kids that he was trying to pace, it was clear that they were sort of reaching their limits, and he knew if they were going to reach their goals, that they were going to have to take that shortest distance. He didn't want to leave anything to chance. So I appreciate that sort of leading the way. I was still tucked in behind him. But when we got to the end of the third kilometer, I did notice that the kids were starting to struggle just a little bit. And I did notice that my watch ticked over, and we were a few more seconds off where we wanted to be if we were going to run that sub 20 5K. So now we reached the 4th kilometer. And again, this is my first time actually running a 5K, but I made the decision at that point that I was going to have to go around them if I was going to have any chance of getting sub 20. So I went around them, and again, I left myself sort of in no man's land, and I started pushing the pace quite a bit. I started getting a little bit of a panic mode because it was feeling really, really hard. And as I was running that 4th kilometer, I knew in my head I had heard so many things about the 4th kilometer being the hardest kilometer, and kind of like in a marathon when I get to the 20th mile, I honestly try to make that my best effort of the entire race. It's a mental thing that I go through. I really think of that as a point where I'm trying to break through that wall, to push through the best I can, to get the most out of myself. I'm not going to let myself defeat myself. And so in that 4th kilometer, I really, really did push on, anticipating that it was going to be really hard. And it became really hard, not just because it was a 4th kilometer, but because I left myself sort of out on my own. Now, when my watch ticked over to say that I had done that 4th kilometer, it did say that I gained a little bit of time. I believe at the time it said 3:55 per kilometer pace for the 4th kilometer. But the one thing that I became aware at that moment was that the 4 kilometer marker was ahead of me. So all that weaving and ducking and diving that I did with Dad earlier on in the race had caught up to me. I wasn't really aware that that was going to happen to me in a 5K so much. It's something I worry about more in the marathon. I know I'm going to lose some distance and I'm going to run over distance. Hadn't really anticipated that too much in the 5K, but I knew seconds mattered. So when I saw that my watch clicked over to 4K, that I had finished 4K, and the 4K marker was still quite a bit ahead, it did make me just a little bit nervous. And then we get into the 5th kilometer, and at this point I am feeling pretty wrecked. I am feeling pretty tired. I am definitely feeling that I've tipped over a point where there is a point of no return, that I'm just going to have to zone out of the pain that I'm going through. I'm going to have to push harder than I ever push in any of my workouts. I'm going to have to probably push harder than I've ever pushed in any race if I wanted to get to that sub 20. I'd reached that point where the lactate was really starting to build up in my legs. I had to mentally dig in and tell myself that my mind was not going to be the thing that was going to slow me down. My legs were going to have to prove to me that it couldn't go any faster. So during that 5th kilometer, I kind of dug in pretty early. Originally, when I had planned out the race, mapped it out of my head, I was actually going to go through that 5th kilometer and get to the 400 meters left mark before I actually kicked up the pace. I did that much earlier here. I knew I had a lot of time that I had to get back what I had lost earlier in the race. So I just put my head down and started running. And for the majority of that last kilometer, I paid zero attention to my watch. I just went all out. Whatever was left in the tank, we were emptying it. And maybe in future 5Ks, I'll pace things a little bit better. I'll feel actually, quite frankly, maybe a little bit worn out by the time we get to that 5th kilometer, so that I do feel that I have to hold back just a little bit before I put that final surge in. So maybe there's something there with the pacing. If you have any tips on pacing, put that in the comment section down below. But 5K, the 5th kilometer, I was pushing that entire kilometer. But there was one point during the 5th kilometer where I looked down at my watch, and it was when my watch beeped over to say that I had run 5K. And when I looked at my watch, 5K 19:52 came up on my watch. I remember distinctly looking at that, distinctly looking that I had run well under pace for that 5th kilometer. But I also remember being quite a bit away from the finish line. So at that point, I put my head down. I just ran as fast as I could. And when I crossed the finish line, it took me a few seconds to click off the watch. So if you see it on Strava, I got over that finish line in 20:04. The chip time was bang on, and I added a few seconds because it took me a few seconds to click over the watch and stop the watch from the race. But I think one of my best and my favorite moments about this race was the fact that it was a smaller race and my family was there to greet me right when I crossed the finish line. That's one of the benefits of running a local smaller race, is that they're able to be there for you right when you cross the line. And I remember saying something to her at that point, saying something like, I don't think I got it. I don't think I made it. I did not have confidence that I had made sub 20. And she said to me, are you sure? Are you sure? I said, no, I don't think I got it. And there was this couple minutes after that where it felt like forever, where we were waiting for it to be updated on the system, where you were able to see Race Roster was going to be able to tell us that what my actual race results were. And after that couple of minutes, she did ask me, do you want to know? Because she knew what I was going for, and she knew sort of how important, for me at least, that I check off that box of sub 20 as part of sort of my overall plan that I have for this summer. And I said, just tell me what I ran. And she said 20:04. It was a great result, but was not the sub 20 that I had went there for. So it's been a week and a half, and I've had a lot of time to think about what that actually means, that I didn't quite make the mark even though I came so close. Did I actually execute on the day? And to be honest with you, it would be easy for me to sit here and think, you know what, I missed it. Reality is, I am not a sub 25Ker. The results, the chip time officially is 20:04, and I'll take that. I'll stand for that. That is my official time. Even though Strava has me going a little bit faster, that is my official time, and it is what it is. But I executed on the day. The goal was to run sub 20 for 5K, and I paced it so that I ran 19:52 for 5K. I'm not saying that was my result, but that was the goal. And the goal of this race was to set a benchmark for myself so that I can run a little bit faster in the race I have coming up in a few weeks, and then I can run a little bit faster, or at least hold pace, for the 10K that I have coming up in mid-July, and I can run a little bit better for that half marathon in September, and that can all roll over into the ultimate goal, is the marathon that I plan on running in October. So for me, do I wish I would have run a sub 20 minute 5K officially? Absolutely. Am I incredibly proud at what I actually did in this race? Absolutely. Would I do anything different the next time I run the race? Sure. There's lots of things that I'm going to do different when it comes to preparing for the next 5K and how I actually pace that. Probably going to blow up in the next one, because we're just going to go for broke. We're going to see just how far we can push that envelope. And if you want to see how far I can push that envelope in the next 5K, you're going to have to subscribe to this channel. You're going to have to like this video. You're going to have to comment in the comment section down below. 5K that I've got coming up in 4 weeks. What do you think I am capable of running? Garmin Garmin coming into this race, I believe I said said that I could run a 20:29. I ended up running a 20:04. Garmin after that race now says that I can run a 19:39, and we're going to try to beat that once again. Put in the comment section down below, what do you think I am going to be able to run that next 5K in? Guys, that's the end of the video. I had so much fun on the morning. I had so much fun pacing my son to an incredible 1,600 meter later on in the day where he absolutely crushed it. There's a whole backstory to why that was difficult for him and the way things all played out in the afternoon that I'm not going to get into here. Maybe another day. But we're going to leave that there for now. Guys, incredibly happy with that run. Hope you enjoyed this video. I know a little bit of rambling here, but I'm just excited about what's to come. My name is Matt. This has been What Matters to Matt, and officially not a sub-20 5K, but we're going to get there. We are going to crush it in June. All right, my name is Matt. This has been What Matters to Matt, and ultimately, what matters to me most is my family. I'll see you guys in the next video.
Crushing it, bud.
Oh, God! You're doing
Let's go, guys. You're almost there. Final
Crushing it.
You're almost
Look at him
there.
go.
You got it.
Go.
Final few
Crushing it.
steps. Here we go.
Hey.
Race complete. Well done, everybody.
On the Garmin.
Alex, he's fun run here. The 47.